Alright, this week in Tyranny, let's do this. Let's get right into it. June 29th, 2025, episode 134. Welcome, my name is Conrad Rogas. This was not the show originally. This is not what I was going to talk about. I wanted to talk about the new normal and revisiting the new normal and talk about a few things that are so commonplace now. But it changed, and good, we'll just roll with it. And it makes sense because it's the last episode before the 4th of July. Okay, so by the time I do my next one, it's going to be after Independence Day weekend. So it's going to be a celebration of independence, kind of like last year. Not really, okay? Not really like fireworks or celebrating, but we are going to talk about the principles of this country. And that's because the story this week is about birthright citizenship. It's kind of a new developing story. And it's going to be one of those deep dive ones. So if you're new, if you started watching my stuff like the last few episodes, there were a couple of simple, they were just more easy. This one's going to be like a deep philosophical one. So, just letting you know, don't say I didn't warn you. But on the 27th, the Supreme Court ruled against universal injunctions in the United States of America, okay? In other words, the lower courts cannot just block executive orders anymore, whereas before they have. A lot of the stuff that Donald Trump was passing, they would just block it, file an injunction, and then it's like it never happened. I talked about this a little bit. Actually, this is part of the new normal, like these back and forth court battles that are just so normal now. Beside the point, the context of this ruling that comes out now, it's concerning the ability of a judge to block this executive order to end birthright citizenship. Okay, what is birthright citizenship? It's the idea that no matter where your parents are from, you are the legal citizen of the country you're born in. So if you're born inside of the United States of America territory, you are an American citizen. And that's how a lot of people see it. Most people think this is just a USA practice, but it isn't. Actually, it's the standard for North, Central, and South America. All the Western Hemisphere, if you look at the map of this practice that is called Jus Soli, right, the law of the soil, it's like all of North and South America. It's all of the Western Hemisphere except for Colombia, right? So everything except Colombia, essentially. Which makes sense, right? It's the New World. It's the colonial system. They came here from Europe, and now they were born here in this new place. People are getting moved around. So leaving the old way of life to start the new. That comes with new ways, new practices, new ways of thinking. So this birthright citizenship, it's a practice called Jus Soli, right? Jus Soli. It's part of the English common law, it was. In contrast to the other kind, which is Jus Sanguinis, right? The law of blood, okay? Blood law, which is more related to Napoleonic Code and actually the French Code. There's probably a bigger deep dive into that, but I think that differential is interesting because I've talked about it. This idea of like the English Revolution, the American Revolution versus the French Revolution, and although they're both called a revolution, they're completely different because what happened over there in France, it's total collectivism, even though it was a revolution. And here in the Americas, it was the kind of revolution that's actually based on principles, based on reason, based on ideas. Really, two completely different things. But, okay, so let's keep talking about that. The first phrase of the Declaration of Independence. Literally, the Declaration of Independence starts with, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another. That's how the Declaration of Independence starts. It's talking about dissolving the political bands that have connected them with another. It's talking about breaking the link, breaking the handcuffs. Okay? And if you're visualizing what I just put there with the map, that if you're born here in Mexico, in Brazil, in the United States of America, or the colonies at the time, if you were born in the land of that is Canada today, you're not connected back to the old world. And although it was independence from England, right? The Americans got independence from England, but a lot of the ideas that led to the independence, they were English ideas. These were like English and Scottish people. A lot of German ideas too. So it's important here that right or wrong have nothing to do with the flag or the country you're born in, right? So the good guys and bad guys, it's not the red coats, and you know, it's about being tied down to man-made paths or being free to pursue your own path. Once you end birthright citizenship, you have hereditary hegemony again. You have feudalism again. This is why I'm doing the whole episode about it. Because if that were to happen, where you're born here in America, but you still you don't necessarily automatically get the citizenship, then being American is no longer about a principle or about a way of life. So you do away with the ideas of the American revolutionaries. You do away with the whole principle of the country, because the United States of America is the first country that's really based on a principle and not just a group of people. It's based on an idea. But once that goes away, you're just going to have approval by government, which is tribalism. So you're a member of the tribe. How? If your parents were a member of the tribe. And the only exception to that would be if the authority takes away or grants citizenship. So it just becomes about the king again, rulership, feudalism, the landowner. So that's a caste system. That would be the end of social mobility, right? And immigration is physical mobility. So we're really just talking about movement here. And I'm leading with that because this is a deep dive episode. Like I said, I warned you. It's way beyond just Trump or beyond just a court decision. I'm going to talk about like the unknown history of humanity and like the mysteries of life itself. It's very grand, okay? But it just is completely necessary, and there's no better time to talk about this. But I kind of gave that. Now, taking it back to what is happening. Why did the Supreme Court ruling happen now? Well, that's because on January 20th, earlier this year, there was the executive order that came out called Protecting the Meaning and Value of American Citizenship. That's what it's called. And I'm not going to read it. You can look it up. It's one of the first executive orders that comes out, right? January 20th. Without going word by word what it says. It is saying in essence is that it's wrong to have a loophole where someone can just cross the border and have a baby on American soil, and then to be a sitter or squatter on American land that weighs down the system and burdens the American economy. That's the idea, okay? I'm not saying that's what it explicitly states. I'm saying that's what it is essentially saying, and I'm saying that is what the spirit of the supporters of conservative government in America today, of MAGA, that's the spirit. And a lot of people agree with this. Why? Because no one likes or respects a squatter. No one likes people who exploit a technicality in the rules to remain somewhere where they're not wanted, where they're not welcome. We all know what that's like. We all felt what it's like to be playing a game with a bunch of people. We all agree on the rules, and then there's one person that ruins the game for everyone because they're not following the rules or for whatever reason. But we can't actually get rid of them, whether it's because the parents are making them include us, right? Because it's not having the ability to exclude them, so we can't get rid of them. Everybody knows that that's infuriating. Everybody knows that it just feels wrong. It's wrong to have one person ruin the game for everybody just because they're not wanted. However, that's not what birthright citizenship is. That's not what it represents, and that's not what its significance is. But I get it. It's real tempting to start applying playground rules to the world at large. And actually, that's how government works. That's how government gets you to vote for them, by utilizing this dialectic. The dialectic between, one, firmly embedded childhood behaviors and experiences, and then two, abstract grand ideas that have no grounding in the physical world. There's really not any middle ground, or it's not even about nuance. There actually is like a swing of extremes. And with this swing over to the conservative government, right? We're talking about Donald Trump's last 4 years, and maybe the 4 before, but especially now, it's like a return to playground thinking, which I'm not saying is wrong. Like, that's a part of. It's like these people that were getting strung along with abstract ideas and all this stuff that the liberals were doing. They are grand abstract ideas that don't really work for everyone in the real world. And now you kind of get a return to the old playground traditions, and so many people are just breathing a sigh of relief. That's as simple as it is. Now, this group of people that were trying to get towards these ideals, that were following these abstract ideas, they want to make these abstract ideas reality. They are horrified that they are getting dragged back into the playground because they don't want to be in the playground. It's really that simple. Two completely distant ideas that work off of each other. And what the result is that people don't even know what they believe. They can't tell you what they believe. Ask them what they believe, they can't tell you. Because it's so dissonant, and the ideas are so contradictory. They get some here and some there, and they can't make it fit. There is no cohesive worldview for people. And to make a long story short, people believe in the concept of a citizen. And hence is the problem where we start with. Citizen, by definition, it just means where you live. It's the word from Latin that means city. Ciudad in all these different languages. It just means your city. So really, citizen does not happen before you have urbanization. So really, this is a concept of being packed into a city, and then you're a citizen of that place. It has nothing to do with rights, right? So it has nothing to do with rights, because rights do not come from any city or any jurisdiction. In the natural law philosophy and tradition, we say that rights come from God. And while I don't disagree with the spirit of that statement, the ultimate essence of that statement, I just don't think it's accurate to say that rights come from God, or that they even come from nature. So before you get horrified and think that I'm a solipsist, no, rights do not ultimately come from God or nature. Literally, rights come from the self. Rights come from self. My rights originate from my makeup and nature as a human being. And the proof for that is that as a human being, we can only function as humans when violence and theft is not done to us. We cannot exist under those conditions. And you can prove that down to our brain chemistry when put in those circumstances. We stop acting like human beings, our neocortex shuts off, the reptilian part of the brain activates, the cerebellum, it goes down to really these animalistic behaviors, and we behave more like animals, and everything that makes humans unique and human retreats into something that is very animalistic, we say, right? And that is why every human being, even if they speak a different language, they can't even communicate, they can be from different cultures, different religions, people recognize, consciously or not, rights and wrongs, of which there really are not that many in the world. But I'm talking about simple rights, and rights derive from self. And I don't just mean human self, right? Because every animate being is a self unto themselves. So right and wrong does extend to animals. So when you look at a rabbit, and the rabbit is looking at you with the blank look, even though that blank look doesn't say much and they can't speak, you can't step on the guy and spit on him and stomp him into the ground. That would be wrong. Everybody knows, right, that is kind of simple. Are we going to say common knowledge? But this is why I'm not referencing common knowledge, because I'm talking scientifically provable. And it's provable that, unlike a blade of grass, a rabbit asserts their selfhood by freedom of movement and choice. So you try to grab him, he's going to move away from you. He's letting you know that he is a free being. He is a self. Okay, by the way he chooses to move and having the ability to do so. I will talk about that later, right? Before you start thinking about loopholes and exceptions for that. Right and wrong comes from self, the self. I'm not talking about whether it's right or wrong to take performance enhancing drugs to recover from an injury before a championship fight, right? None of these, I'm not really talking about ethics, I'm talking about clear physical aggression, violating of bodily boundaries, violating personal space and living space, violating acquired property where there is a clear claim to ownership. That's right and wrong. So I have the same rights being born in the United States as I would have being born in Venezuela. So then birthright citizenship actually has nothing to do with real birthright, because a real birthright is the universal truth that every self is born free. And that doesn't mean free to file a patent in court for your invention. It doesn't mean free to a trial by jury of your peers, like a lot of the common law folks love to talk about. And I'll address all of it soon, by the way. I've already mentioned it twice. It's coming. But being free to fight for your freedom, that's your birthright. Even if you're born in a prison, even if you're from whatever country, born in whatever circumstance, that's your freedom is still rightfully yours, even if no one in the world even knows what it is. It doesn't matter if nobody agrees or nobody knows what it is. It's yours. So I'm taking my time on this. I really want to take my time this show to make this clear. I don't appeal to anything outside of myself. I don't appeal to anything beyond myself for my rights, not even God. Personally, do I believe in God? Absolutely. Actually, I don't even think belief is required. I think like any man who's made love to a woman that loves them back understands that God exists. Kind of obvious. But, I laugh because not everyone's going to agree with me there, right? So, that's just the way it makes sense to me, right? That would be... So that's why I don't talk about God on my channel, like at all. I don't talk about it. And that's because I'm talking about what is scientifically provable. I'm talking about what is objective and with no exceptions. And that's because I don't want to give anyone even a millimeter of room to twist or disprove anything I say, because that's what always happens in conversations in the world. You can grab something that a person says, anything that they write, and change your interpretation. I don't want to give that breathing room, because Truth and Law, my channel, is about the fight for actual freedom. That's why it's called that. Anything else you say, people can start arguing semantics and definitions and manipulate reality. They manipulate what you say. So starting with actual truth, which is the statement that A equals A. You might know it as the law of identity. That's the backbone of communication. Without that, we can't even communicate. A equals A is the recognition that even though I am loyal only to myself, I recognize myself. I see the entire world through my perspective, only me. But I respect that there is another self. There are all kinds of beings out there that are a self, just like I am. And thus I recognize that myself and that other self, other people, other animals, we exist in the same shared reality. It's a recognition of shared reality. That's the definition of truth. It shouldn't be a difficult word to define. It's just a recognition by two separate entities that they both dwell in the same medium through which they are connected. And basically what it means is, in plain language, is that you can't feed someone a pile of dog shit and say that it's Maine lobster, because it isn't. It just ain't. That's truth. Then actual law naturally follows truth. It naturally follows the statement that A equals A. Now, laws are all the things that are causal relationships that occur without exception. Causal relationships that occur without exceptions. Another easy definition. So, free fall speed, fluid mechanics, load calculations, weight distributions, cause and effect. These are all laws. Okay? Now, when it comes to laws for human beings, there aren't that many of them. There are all these laws for matter and objects, but human behavior, there aren't very many laws, because humans are really unique for and defined by freedom of choice. They actually choose who they are. The freedom to choose what sort of a life they're going to live. And yes, one's environment can drastically alter how much potential you have to exercise your freedom, right? So not everybody is born with the same amount of choice, right? You could be born paralyzed and then you don't have very much choice. But choice is parallel to the self. So it follows that. Okay, that recognition, that assertion of self. Scientifically, I would trace the origins of nature itself and rights back to semiotics, which then highlights the importance of language. And then if we pull on that string, we can get into the logos and what the word is. That's obviously a different conversation, right? That would be a more abstract and speculative investigation. I'm going to stick to the simple and provable. It's basically, when it comes to human beings, there aren't that many laws because we are kind of autobiographers. We write our own story. Or we should be writing our own story, at least, right? We should be living our own narratives and not those of others. We can lay down our own tracks, right? Or walk the tracks that are already laid down. So that's it for laws. And while it's easy to say it's right to honor your parents, it's right to treat everyone how you want to be treated, or to make the world a better place and help others, no one actually has to do that. We can't say that those are laws. We can't say that those are objective laws. The only objective moral law there is, it prohibits the taking away of those things that every self rightfully owns, which is their body, including their home and their living space, their freedom of choice, the things that they claim and acquire through free choice. It's really those basic things, don't steal, don't kill, these things. That's truth and law. That's the end. That's as much law as you can put on human beings. Everything else is up to you. You don't even have to eat today, And then to conclude all that, the assertion of self, that's the biggest defense. That's the defense against the biggest threat, the biggest danger, and the biggest enemy to the world, which is those people that take what isn't theirs, those who prey on the defenseless and innocent, and those who use power and influence to abuse others. That's what's going on in the world. That's who I'm fighting against. So asserting the self, I'm using my main weapon. I won't even give you nature. I won't even give you God, because no loopholes with this. It's no exceptions. Truth and law. We are free, goddammit. So taking it back to Donald Trump and what's going on in the courts. So let me be super clear again. Donald Trump is not the only enemy that the world has. He's not the worst national leader in the world. He's not the biggest wrongdoer in the world. But the issue of American birthright citizenship, it is a big deal. And that's why. It's meritocracy versus feudalism and heredity. It's also about having the ability to rewrite your own story by living in this country. That's kind of the principle that should be very apparent to those who are principle-minded. But even if you're not principle-minded and you're just thinking about what's better today, because a lot of people are like that. They say, I know the principles you're saying, it would be right not to vote, but Kamala would have been worse. It's also about the health of this country. If you don't fight for birthright citizenship, it also will lead to the deterioration of the health of this country. It's not the only thing that will deteriorate the health of this country. There are a million other things, but I want to make the point that when you close off a gene pool where you stop movement in and out, that's when you get your reduction in IQ, you get all of the deteriorations of a bloodline. And hey, look no further than European royalty, right? This is the thing, like, what makes you American? Is it just the fact that your dad was American? Because I know plenty of people, I always say this, that they could claim 5-6 generations that were here, but they live like degenerates, And then there's a person that could come here from Cambodia and and totally know the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence forward and backwards. They live the principles of it. They create employment and generate wealth for the country. And meanwhile, these people that could be shopping at Walmart all the time, they're selling out the country to, you could say, China or whoever. So, just basic examples. Like when we talk about America, is it stars and stripes? Because it's never been stars and stripes. This country has never been that. It's never been the spangled banner and having a strong military and none of this stuff. Originally, it's about the idea. So when you talk about patriotism, when people talk about patriotism, which patron are you talking about? Is it the king back in the old world or the king of nature? The king of the entire world. And that king of the entire world, of all nature, it's embodied in the self. People say all the time now, Jesus is king. Like, Jesus has often been talked about as a worldly ruler. And even if we reference the Bible, Jesus Christ was a flesh and blood human being who said, the kingdom of God is within you. He said it's within you. And I do reference the text, by the way, so I will reference the Bible, and I won't reference church dogma or church teachings, because church teachings are just like the Supreme Court or any common law jury. It's just a group of men who claim things. And I don't take anyone's claims or interpretations as objective truth or objective law. I evaluate that for myself. That is the freedom of choice that makes us human. And that's why love is the force that powers the world. Love is an assertion of self, as opposed to the old world practice of slavery. Because that's what we're heading towards. Everything that's going on in the New World today, especially the United States of America, it's trending towards old world practices. And there's so much new, there's so much craziness that a lot of us, including me, have been feeling like that pull, that urge to go back to traditions. We just want to go back to the way things were. I wish I could go to the 80s right now, for sure, right? But the trending towards old world practices, okay? Not the 80s, not the 40s. We're talking about just how things used to be before we started living based off of philosophical ideas, and we were just living based on traditions and systems. Okay? So don't be fooled. The AI, the social media era, all that sterile, empty existence of today, all of the soulless and lifeless things about life today in America, that's not what freedom leads to. That's not America. That's not the New World. That's just high-tech feudalism. That's what we have today. We have high-tech feudalism. And it's no surprise that, Elon Musk was the right-hand man for the longest, and then you have this whole AI and technocracy thing. Trump is all about AI and Bitcoin, right? Because it's just a bait and switch. People don't realize that what we see as new is actually old. It's just high-tech feudalism. It's hijacking your freedom of choice. It's hijacking your reality and making your reality, your perspective, depend on something that is ordained or force-fed to you by some unrecognizable grand entity, whether it is the king or the priest or whoever the priest says he gets his power from, okay? We're going back to feudalism. We're going back to the dark ages, the old world. And I'm here to speed right past that high-tech feudalism, and I'm not going to get caught in that web. We got to move at the speed of, not the speed of light, but the speed of love, which starts with assertion of self, and it's about enjoying other human beings for their virtues and being enjoyed for ours. Very simple. I can't believe I made it in a half hour. I thought it was going to be a long show. So, yeah, that is the 4th of July celebration. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week on This Week in Tyranny.